So you passed the recruiter screen, you've applied for the job. Now it's time to interview. What questions are they going to ask you? Hey guys, ECRG here. We have another viewer requested question. And I love these because it shows that you guys are active and engaged and are really listening and really want to take part in this community that we're building together one day at a time. So this question comes in from a viewer, and she asked, what questions are asked during a clinical research interview? And by the way, if you want to ask a question, you can either just comment it down below or you can email us at eliteclinicalgroup@gmail.com. We always respond, and you can email us your question or just comment it down below, but you can ask your question that way. So this viewer asked the question, what questions are asked during a clinical research interview? And she specifically wanted me to go in through the entry-level positions and maybe even some of the higher level position questions that they will ask. So basically, clinical research has shifted to a more behavioral approach-based interview. And a lot of other industries have done this as well. But basically, a behavioral interview is where they ask how you're going to act or your behavior in certain situations. So they'll ask something like this. Like, let's say you have a deadline coming up on Friday and it's Wednesday, and you've got 3 things you need to get done, but you know for sure no matter how hard you work, you're only going to be able to get 2 of them done. What do? So then they just want to hear what your thought process is and what your answer is. Maybe there's no right answer to the particular question they could be asking, but they want to hear how you work through it, how you're going to get through it, how you're going to escalate certain things, etc. So they want to know how you're going to act in different scenarios. So they ask anything like that to even something to an easy one, like, what are you going to do if someone's being rude to you on the phone? They're going to ask you a bunch of these scenario-based questions, especially more dealing with the job. So let's say your job is you're going to be on the phone a lot. Let's say you are a site ID person, and they give you a list of people to contact. You're supposed to contact these people. So they're going to ask you behavior-based questions to something that you're going to be dealing with on a daily basis. How do you act after you've gotten through like 5 or so phone calls? How do you act when someone doesn't pick up the phone the first time? How are you going to act when no one is responding to your emails or missed phone calls? No one seems to be contacting you back. How are you going to act in all these different situations? So there's usually not a way to prepare for it because you don't know what kind of questions they may be asking you. But what you want to have prepared are some examples that you can reuse over and over again. So you have some bona fide examples, solid examples of, a time that you struggled. You're going to have an example of a time that you struggled and were successful. You're going to have an example of a time that you struggled and failed. And you prepare these beforehand so you can use them during these situations, because you never know what questions they're going to ask. But a lot of times those type of answers that you've prepared are general enough where they can apply in different scenarios and situations. But the behavioral aspect of the interview is huge. This is something that they ask, all the way from the littlest, like research assistant, all the way up to a senior CRA, project manager, project director. They want to know how you act in various situations, because you're going to be faced with these situations on a day in and day out basis. And they want to know that your behavior is somewhat predictable and that you're not going to just fly off the handle at something or fly off the handle at somebody and cost the company some money in the long run. So behavioral questions are huge. And, depending on the role may depend on the more behavioral questions you're asked. For example, an entry-level role, you're not going to know too much about clinical research, so they're not going to pound you on ICH GCP regulations. They're not going to pound you on, how to break down a 1572. They're not going to pound you on everything that needs to be an essential document in the TMF, because you're not going to know those things off the back of your hand. You may not know them at all, especially if it's an entry-level role. But as you get up in the field, as you become your in-house CRA, as you become your CRA, as you become your project manager, they're going to ask you more and more questions dealing with clinical research because they're going to expect you to know them like the back of your hand. So if you're a CRA, you better know how to read a protocol. You better know what sections make up a protocol. You better know what constitutes informed consent, because that's something that you're going to be collecting on every visit. There's just some things for each position that you have to know. And there's no doubt in my mind that if you're applying for a position that you will know it, because that's just the bare minimum. Most of that stuff is going to come from on-the-job knowledge. You may review some of those situations, like I mentioned before, that you can bring up for different scenarios that they may ask. But a lot of that's just going to come from the on-the-job knowledge. Now, if you're new to clinical research, you definitely want to focus on the behavioral aspect to these questions, because that's pretty much what they're going to be asking you. And then they're going to be asking you maybe about your past work experience. And so with your past work experience, you want to be able to, tell them a little bit about it, and then be able to parlay that into how it relates to clinical research, or parlay that into something that will benefit in clinical research, or something that they will like. So if they ask you a question, you want to be able to, glean the positive out of your answer and hit and counterpunch with that. That's just a common interview strategy. That's not just particular to clinical research, but just in general. So, as you get higher up in clinical research, the more clinical research specific questions they may ask. But behavioral is going to be a basis. They've been asking behavioral questions. They started probably pretty much over the past few years, really narrowing it down. I had an interview one time not too long ago, and they pretty much only asked behavioral questions. Especially if you've never had that job before. If you're new to that job role, they're not going to ask you things that are specific to that job role. They're going to ask you things that were specific to your previous job role to make sure that you understood that and you were competent in that. But they also want to know more about your mindset. How do you act in situations? Because they can teach you how to do the job, but what they can't teach you is your manners, your customer service, your email etiquette, your phone etiquette. And that's really what they want to narrow down in the interview. So hope that really helps. I haven't done every position in clinical research, so I can't talk specifically about different ones, but just in my experience, behavioral questions are huge. So I would look around for different behavioral questions and practice with yourself. If more people are interested in doing that, you can leave some in the comments, and I can practice responding to those in a decent way. Or, maybe we can work something out. We have a mock interview if someone's interested in that, and we can film that or record that and put it out for the audience to critique. There's a lot of different things we could do. So if any of you guys are interested in that, you can comment down below. But yeah, just basically with the interview thing, you really just want to prepare your scenarios, and everything is going to be based on behavioral based questions for the most part, especially if you're new to clinical research. So hope that helps, guys. As always, email us at eliteclinicalgroup@gmail.com. For any questions or inquiries, you want to become part of our resume review program, email us there. Just send over your resume. Or if you want to advertise with us, you can email us there as well. All right, guys, take care.